They called her blind, yet she saw the truth that kings and priests feared. This is the story of Abeni, the blind seer of Kambari Kingdom. Long ago, in the age when drums carried messages across valleys and elders spoke with the voice of history, there stood a great land known as the Kingdom of Kambari. Kambari rested between red earth plains and ancient forests, where spirits were said to dwell. Its people believed deeply in signs, dreams, and the words of the Masugani, the chief priests. Men believed to see beyond the ordinary world. Upon the royal throne sat King Zubairu, young in age, yet heavy with responsibility. He had inherited the crown too early, after the sudden death of his father. Though the palace was always full, the king often felt alone. The elders spoke carefully. The priests spoke loudly. But the people suffered quietly. Harvests began to fail. Disputes grew common, and fear crept into the hearts of the kingdom. Yet whenever the king questioned the priests, they replied the same way. The gods are pleased, they said. If trouble remains, it is the people who are stubborn. But King Zubairu felt uneasy. Something was wrong. Far from the palace, beside the gentle waters of River Molo, lived a blind girl named Abeni. She had lost her sight as a child after a strange fever. One, the elders whispered, came from touching the spirit world too early. Since then, Abeni lived with her aged grandmother beneath a wide baobab tree. She wove mats, she told stories to children, and she listened. Though her eyes saw nothing, Abeni heard everything: the wind, the river, the pauses in people's voices. She sensed joy, fear, and lies as easily as others recognized faces. Villagers often said in hushed voices, "She does not see with her eyes. She sees with her soul." They came to her quietly, to ask about rain, to seek comfort, to hear truth. The priests, however, laughed when her name was mentioned. "What wisdom can darkness bring?" they mocked. One night, troubled by dreams of fire and falling crowns, King Zubairu made a decision. He wrapped himself in a simple traveler's cloak and left the palace without guards or drums. He wanted to hear the truth, not polished words, but real voices. His feet carried him farther than he planned, until he reached River Molo. There, beneath a baobab tree, he heard the soft rhythm of weaving. Before he could speak, the blind girl raised her head. "Welcome," Abeni said calmly, "one who carries worry like a second skin." The king froze. "I am only a traveler," he replied. "I do not greet faces," she said gently. "I greet spirits. Yours is restless and lonely." For the first time since wearing the crown, King Zubairu felt truly seen. He returned the next day and the day after. They spoke of justice. Abeni said, "A ruler must listen longer than he speaks." They spoke of power. She said, "Power that fears truth destroys itself." They spoke of the gods. She said, "The gods leave when pride enters." Slowly the king's heart changed. But eyes were watching. The chief priest, Malam Kaita, noticed the king's absence. He followed and saw the blind girl by the river. "A blind peasant?" he scoffed. "This is who whispers to the throne." Fear turned to anger. The priests confronted the king. "She is dangerous," they warned. "Her words are charms. She will mislead the kingdom." The king remained silent, but he had already decided. He called for a great gathering in the palace square. Elders, priests, and villagers filled the air with murmurs. The blind girl was brought forward, guided by her grandmother. King Zubairu stood and spoke. "I will ask one question," he said. "Whoever answers with truth shall guide this kingdom." He turned to them all and asked, "What blinds a ruler more than darkness?" The priests answered first. Enemies, one said. Witches, another said. The anger of the gods, said Malam Kaita. Then Abeni spoke.
The ruler is blinded when he
said
felt the
softly,
truth.
when he fears truth and loves praise more than his people. Silence fell. The wind moved through the square. King Zubairu rose. These priests see with their eyes, he declared, yet their hearts are shut. This girl has no sight, yet her wisdom lights the throne. The false priests were stripped of power and sent away. Joy returned to Kambari. Abeni was invited to the palace not as a servant, not as a curiosity, but as an advisor. The king listened. The people healed. The rains returned. Love grew quietly between wisdom and humility. And so, Abeni became Queen Abeni of Kambari, the queen who ruled without sight, yet guided a nation with truth. Till today, elders say, do not mock the eyes that do not see. For some, blindness is a blessing, and some sight is a curse.